It's funny how money changes situation. Miscommunication lead to complication. My emancipation don't fit your equation. I was on the humble, you on every station. Someone play young Lauren like she done. But remember not to game the under the sun. Everything you did has already been done. I know all the tricks from bricks to Kingston. 19 done major, king done one run. To understand El Boogie non-violent. But if a thing test me, run for me gun. Y'all take a threat to me newborn son. Help in this way since creation. A group of fire you far from temptation.
What's up, fam? You back at Angels Impact, and I'm glad to see y'all. I know I took a couple of days off, but we're gonna go right back into part 4. We're going to discuss the listeners. And here's a definition. The listeners are the people who read about the game and listen to the game from the parking lot. They may even be the couch potatoes who watch the game on TV. They always get secondhand information. They are never there. They are always on the outside of the event. These are people who live their lives working for other people at the bottom of the scale of life. They are the masses of the population who never live out their dreams. The listeners know the game is going on. They just have not developed themselves enough to participate in the game. Most of the listeners could not afford the tickets to the game, or don't even know who to buy tickets from because they're overwhelmed with just survival and working from day to day. They live their entire life responding to others and developing other people's programs. They're always wondering what went on. They often see the world in terms of would have, could have, and should have. Most of the listeners are in the second, third, and fourth stages of life. They are the everyday workers in everyday society. They are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. But the most needed commodity called human labor. They are the bottom section of the pyramid of life. In the martial arts, they are the wanafunzi, the white and yellow belts. They have seen all the martial art movies and need the skills, but have mastered very few. In the beautiful garden of life, these people have never really paid much attention to it because they have been too busy working. They have only looked at the garden in books and magazines and TV and movies. They don't think the beautiful garden is a realistic, attainable goal. Wait a minute. They don't think the beautiful garden is a realistic, attainable goal. Many Africans in this group cannot help themselves because they are not conscious that the matrix is controlling their desires and aspirations. The masses of Africans in America think they are not capable of defeating white male domination, or even they are not really sure who their enemies are. So even in the name of progress, they're confused. Masses enslave themselves even more. And just like the garden, they don't think that African liberation and independence is a realistic, attainable goal. So they get lost in the illusion of American insanity. My friends, this wisdom is coming from the book Spiritual Warriors Are Healers. I mean, this book is chock full of information. This is a must-have, again, by our good friend, our educator, our master teacher, one of our master teachers, Infadishi. He's going to be mad because I can't say his whole name. Much respect, my brother. So the listeners, let's talk about it. Like, who are we really describing in this text? Do I really need to break this paragraph down? I mean, it was very clear. We're talking about the masses of people who are not conscious. This message and my message is only for the conscious. Or those who are ready for information, for those who are ready for knowledge. I don't spend a lot of time trying to give my family, this kind of information. I don't spend my time talking to people about this information who didn't ask for it, who didn't mention it, who didn't give any inkling that they're conscious and that they want to discuss next steps. I don't impose, just like I don't impose people to impose their beliefs on me. I don't do it, and I don't do it. Some people are just, listen, like it said, folks is unconscious, they're unaware, they really don't believe that there are attainable goals outside of just going to work and coming home. And the occasional, go out and do something in a weekly basis or what have you. I don't want to shit on these people because they simply don't know. And you shouldn't shit on them either. You just need to have a ear for when someone sounds like they have a question about consciousness. Have an ear and be willing to explain what you've learned to someone who asks you. But to run around and try to, like I have a whole bookshelves of books, knowledgeable books. And my children, I don't push it on them. My daughter, she'll go to it, she'll read it, right? She'll ask questions. My son, he reads it on the down low. Because when you talk to him about certain things, surprisingly, he knows things. Like he knows the mythology of Cthulhu. He knows about the books, because I have books that are even in anime, that have lots of knowledge in it. He's reading it. But I don't force them to become conscious. It's just so much around them that they're just going to learn it anyway, naturally, organically, not by force, right? What can I say about the listeners? The listeners are people that run on hearsay, that are the ones who believe everything CNN says. Whatever they read in the newspaper, the Daily News, the Post, the Atlanta, whatever they have out here, because I don't read any of these newspapers. But they believe it. And it's not your place to correct them. I say leave the listeners right where they are so that they are not in our way. It sounds fucked up, but I'm so serious. I'm saying be mindful that eventually they're listening, they're going to hear something eventually. So it is then you impart or guide to different books so they can start with our historical chapters, our historical information, literary information, and then they can go into the different sciences that calls them. I can't say I really got love for listeners, but what I can say is I don't shit on them on purpose.
What?
On purpose.
What?
On purpose.
What the fuck?
What I can say is they just don't know. I don't so much focus on the listeners. I focus on people that I run into that just out of nowhere ask me stuff, questions. about the conscious community, yeah, you might get a play with me. I try not to give out too much information on our whereabouts. But if you ask me about basic information that you can find in a book, or you tell me about a book you read, if I read it, we can discuss what we got out of it. But for the most part, I leave listeners alone. I know a lot of listeners. You know, they're on my job, they're in my family, they're neighbors, they're, people I grew up with, friends that, people I've met along the way are listeners. And I'm not the one, I tried at one point to throw subtle stuff at people. If they don't get it, they don't get it. I'm listening. I listened. I listen to a lot of stuff. What do I believe is what's really important.